What is an IEP? An IEP is a little bit more intense. The IEP actually falls under the special ed department. So in the IEP, if you want to remember the difference, the IEP, think of it's individualized education plan, but think of the P for the word pull out. Often, not always, but often in an IEP, we're going to pull the student out either for the class, and they'll work with a tutor or a special ed department, or we're just going to give them some extra supports like speech therapy or some extra reading help or whatever it is. But the idea is we're going to take them out of the classroom often. So not always, but it's a little more intense. So this kid needs a little bit more help. It's not as easy to deal with in the classroom with the standard curriculum teacher. So we're going to give them a little bit more help. So that's the IEP. Now the IEP comes from another federal law called the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act. So those are the two sources. Doesn't really matter, but the idea is that these two federal laws bring these two things down. Now an IEP has to get looked at more often than a 504. We got to evaluate it more often, make sure that things are going well. But to qualify for an IEP, there are 13 categories that the student has to meet. So it can't just be enough to say, well, my student has some ADHD and it makes it a little bit harder to read or to focus or whatever. If we can solve it with a 504, that's generally going to be what the district wants to do, right? We want to keep this as least restrictive as possible. We don't want to pull students out if we don't have to. We want to keep them in their classroom with their peers and their teacher. We just want to give them supports. Now the IEP says, okay, there are one of 13 categories, and there's several of them, but very intense like ADHD, anxiety that greatly disrupts learning, deafness, blindness. There's a whole host of them. And if you meet one of these 13 categories, you are eligible for an IEP. But again, you have to meet one of these categories. So